If Luka Doncic were to be available, you don't get stingy. And Sunday proved it. It's next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, how are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked on Jazz. Today, the rumors circulating that the Jazz have kept a keen interest on Luka Doncic. We'll discuss it and why you just don't get stingy at all. And Jayson Tatum proved it to us on Sunday. We'll talk about Lauri Markkanen getting snubbed, which we have not touched on because I think there's some interesting things about how the vote went down. But before that, Tuesday is lottery day, and we will look at where the NBA draft boards sit as we head toward the lottery and get zeroed in on our draft positions. That's all coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen each and every day. And to the everydayers out there, I thank you. I appreciate you. And glad you take advantage of the show every single day. We try to make it so you become a better Jazz fan throughout it. We're free. We're available on all podcasting apps, as well as on YouTube. So hit subscribe, follow, and on YouTube, hit the bell button. Today's show is brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Prize Picks first-time users receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. I appreciate all of you who told me to go buy the Ioniq 6 in the comments section the other day. Appreciate it. Everydayers, give yourself a Monday shout out on YouTube. All right, there's been a lot of talk about Luka. I haven't really gotten involved. Today's show is almost like the items that I haven't touched on in a bit. There's just, Luka is the rumor thing that's going on right now. And I think the way it was phrased in the National Report is the Jazz are keeping a very interested eye. Of course they are. So let me get the first thing out here. One, I don't think Luka's available. In fact, if I'm Dallas, I don't care what Luka tells me he wants to do. I don't care what Luka says he might do. I'm not trading Luka until, I'm not trading Luka. Actually, under any circumstance. I would probably force Luka to leave in free agency. And we saw why on Sunday. Jayson Tatum's monstrous, remarkable, incredible, on the floor where legends have been made performance, finishing with 51 on 28 shot attempts on 6 of 10. That's what wins. LeBron's third quarter against the Warriors the other night, when he just simply took over the game and dominated, that's what wins. Miami-New York series, a bit different because New York wasn't very good. Didn't happen. And if you go back to why the Jazz traded Rudy Gobert, because he can't do that. And I think if the Jazz had their preference, they might not have traded Donovan Mitchell because he might be able to do that. Right? That's, to win, you have to have that. The Warriors have lost because Klay Thompson isn't really able to do it anymore, right? The truth of the matter is Anthony Davis has done it too defensively. 20 rebounds, 17 points the other night, only 9 shot attempts because LeBron was doing what LeBron did with a 38-year-old 39-9. But there's about 6 guys that can do it, right? So Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, he can. Giannis is a great question. His will, his tenacity, his effort, his pizzazz, his open court play. But half court, it gets ugly. Luka. LeBron still has spurts. That's why I keep saying he did in the third quarter the other night. Steph can do it. The problem with the Warriors is Klay can't do what Jamal Murray or Donovan Mitchell can do. And Jamal Murray can kind of do it for a little while as Nikola Jokic is, but Jokic is the one doing it. Durant, Booker. These are the special guys that still exist in this league. There's 8, 9 of them, maybe. 8. That's what makes the league incredible right now. And so if one of them's available, like I was on with DJ and PK, and they were like, well, I mean, how do you hold this? Or, you don't hold anything. Like, I mean, I don't want to like be sitting here saying like, well, actually, I mean, I don't want to like as a Jazz like fan and Jazz supporter say like, oh, we should just give him every single one of our picks, but like pretty close. Well, should you? Oh, I don't want to give up Lauri. No. Like you actually, no. Like you give up Lauri. Like what? I don't want to give up. No, I don't either want to give up Lauri, but Lauri can't do that. Right? And in turn, obviously, if you give up Lauri, you're probably giving up a few less picks. But if you have a chance, under any circumstance, to go get a guy like that, and Luka's not perfect, right? He's not getting back on defense. He doesn't run when he's on the floor. His individual defense is horrendous. That doesn't matter. Like, this is one of those guys. You go 2 years ago through the pick and roll numbers. In the top 10, there were 3 guys as ball handlers who had 3 other one guy who had 3 other partners in the top 10. That's Luka. If you go last year to the guys who ran the 60 most pick and rolls, so 2 on every team, guys who ran 1,000 pick and rolls last year, there's 60 of them. The number 1 guy in the NBA is Luka. It's not that close. Dame's kind of there. Steph, Donovan, Kyrie. Luka's number 1. Go to isolation. Luka's number 1. Probably go to Luka's number 1. Like, he's the greatest singular offensive player in the game. Jokic does enough that maybe you could make that argument, but just with the ball in your hands as a ball handler, Luka. No one's better. Dame Lillard was second this last year. Which is an interesting note that he was that good at this age. Makes you wonder. That dollar figure is massive. So on this conversation about Luka, which again, I'll state, the Jazz are keeping a keen eye. Of course they are. He's one of them. There's like a very few, it's like the Supreme Court justices. There's like 9 of them. And of course the Jazz are keeping a keen eye on it. And then to the next point of it is, like, people are asking, like, well, what do you offer? You know what you offer? Enough they think about it. And then you know what you offer? 1 more. Enough so that they're like, oh God, we have to do it. Like, it's a little bit, and obviously this is a bad example because he's not Luka, but I do think Danny was probably ready to trade Rudy anyway and turn this thing over. But what Minnesota offered for Rudy Gobert, it would have been criminal if Danny didn't take it. You kind of have to get to that point on a Luka. You have to get to the point where you make it criminal for Dennis Lindsay or whomever it is that's making the decisions over there to not take it. Now, the little I know about Dennis Lindsay's personality from his time in Salt Lake, I also don't think he's the type who would ever trade Luka. Ever. Under any circumstance. Ever. There's just zero chance of it. Even if he had the killer package. I'm just not sure that's the kind of deal. It's unclear who's running the show, if Harrison's still running the show there, or if Lindsay's running the show. But now that Dennis is in Dallas. But anyway, on Luka, all of it. I mean, as much as you can, and then more. Because he's one of the guys. And that's how you win. Jayson Tatum proved it Sunday. He was unbelievable. We'll talk about where the NBA draft board sits as we move toward Lottery Tuesday. Oh gosh, every lucky charm you possibly have better be out tomorrow. Today's edition of Locked on Jazz is brought to you by my friends over at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, also located in in Logan. Murdoch Chevy, great deals going on right now. 1.9% APR plus $4,000 back on any of your trucks that are out there right now. The Chevy trucks are the Silverado and the Colorado, and they're the best that are out there. They've got a great appreciation going on for all those who have served. $500 cash back on most models. 25% off your Sirius XM subscription. So lots of super deals. The Bolt, you're up to $7,500 of clean vehicle federal tax credit right now on that. So lots of different deals going on at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, right off the freeway, as well as available for you in Logan. If you're going to stop by, do email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. Let's give you the Locked On VIP experience you everydayers deserve. And you look at those Google reviews, amazing. The staff was the best to work with. This is from this weekend. Mr. Arturo is very kind. The best is really kind and attentive. I purchased my dream car. I couldn't be happier. The experience we had was great. Not what you'd expect at a typical dealership. The staff was friendly, not pushy at all, and they made us very happy. It's all at Murdoch Chevy in Bountiful. Email me first at dlock09@gmail.com so that we can give you that VIP experience. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, where the 100% deposit match still exists for you. If you haven't jumped aboard and aren't having fun with Prize Picks, yes, now is the time to do it. You deposit $100 with the promo code Locked On. Your first time user, you get $100 back. Plus, every day of the NBA playoffs and finals, one Prize Picks user will win a challenge to become a millionaire. Here's how it works. One entry placed after 8 a.m. Eastern, that's so you're good on that, will randomly be selected each day. Whoever placed that entry is then given a 6-pick flex. 6 picks right, million. 5, 80,000, 4, 16,000. Full details can be found at prizepicks.com/million. You must opt in at the link to be eligible for the $1 million entry. That's prizepicks.com/million. It's your daily fantasy answer, not competing against other people. Great deal of fun. Get it done now at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com. First time users, $100 instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Tomorrow we're going to do something fun. We've done this in the past. We're going to get all of the lottery teams in one kind of hangout YouTube. It'll start at 6 Eastern, or 6 Mountain when the lottery's going on. I think it's 6 o'clock our time. Is it 6 o'clock Eastern? I'll have to check. That would be really inconvenient because my daughter has her state tournament. I think it's... NBA, lottery, David checks nervously. Great. Nothing just popped up that said time. I will have that. I should have that for you. But I clearly just have 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock. Good. That's perfect. Glad that doesn't screw up my life the way I thought it did for a second. Anyway, little insight there. You find out about the Ionic 6. You find out about like little insights. Okay. So we'll do a fun thing. We'll do a YouTube on Locked On NBA, and we're all hanging out together, talking trash, having fun as the names go. We get voted off Survivor Island. Hopefully, when the lottery comes up and it gets to the 10th pick, we do not hear the Jazz name, unless you want to go to 10 just to screw the Mavericks. I haven't really figured out what everyone's feeling on that is. I'll explain that in a second. Then when we get to 9, you hope to not hear the Jazz name. There's two, here's how you watch the lottery. We'll talk about this tomorrow a little bit, the primer. The first thing is you actually don't want any weird names to start at first. We'll do it that way tomorrow. We'll do our lottery that way for you. And then if you get no weird names, that's increasing our chances every single time. And then your chances are actually, by the time you get to 9, if nothing weird's happened, your chances are actually increased now because you know that information that you might be in the top 4. And so then once you get to 9, then if you don't hear the Jazz at 9 or 10, you just start dancing around, partying, going crazy, screaming and yelling. And then you wonder, then you get greedy. Then you're wondering okay, top 4 is not good enough. I want 1. I want Victor. Here's where the NBA draft board sits right now, according to, let's start with Kevin O'Connor at the Ringer, and then we'll go to Rafael Barlow. So Victor's 1, Brandon Miller's 2, Scoot Henderson's 3, Amon Thompson is 4. That seems to be kind of the universal. This is where then things begin to change. Stuart Thompson is 5, according to Kevin O'Connor. But on the board by Rafael Barlow of Locked On NBA Big Board, he drops G.G. Jackson at 5, which is a big surprise. And then Leaf Tulane, who will be filling in for Locked On Jazz coming up here next week, great draft expert, has some other differences. 6 for things are really different depending on the board. Kevin O'Connor then has Anthony Black at 6. Why can I not say that this morning? Walker out of Houston. I can't say it this morning. Absolutely have zero chance right now. 7. Taylor Hendricks at 8. Cam Whitmore at 9. And Jayson Wallace at 10. Whereas Rafael Barlow has Cam Whitmore at 6. Then he has Sewer Thompson at 7, who is seemingly slipping a little bit. There was even a mock the other day that had him at 9 to the Jazz. Jayson Wallace at 8, Anthony Black at 9, and Jarace Walker, there we go, at 10. So it's the same 10 on both boards, just in different orders. Then Kevin O'Connor has Grady Dick at 11, except for G.G. Jackson for Raphael's different. Grady Dick at 11, Keontae George at 12, Nick Smith at 13, Ryan Rupert at 14, and then Derek Lively at 15. Raphael has Grady Dick at 11, Taylor Hendricks at 12, who was up higher on O'Connor's board in his top 10. Nick Smith at 13, Kobe Buffkin at 14, who's kind of floating into some spots, and Jordan Hawkins. So there's where you're beginning to get some real kind of disagreement on things. And then there's the Jonathan Giovoni mock draft, which often is greatly influenced by whether or not that draft is often, and it was, and this goes back to the Chad Ford days, that draft, mock draft, and he hasn't updated his since April 12th, is often built based on where front offices have players going. Sometimes what you're getting out of Kevin O'Connor, or at least Rafael Barlow, is what they believe, right? So you're getting some more kind of play from those guys in regards to what they believe and where they think. So G.G. Jackson's a player that Rafael Barlow just really, really believes in, thinks he should be fifth. It's fifth on his big board of talent. Whereas I think a lot of these others are, where do they think the draft is going to go to? So the latest pieces from the NBA draft analysis on ESPN have not had a mock draft in quite some time. Jeremy Woo's doing some nice work over there, which is nice to see. He was over at Sports Illustrated, done a lot of lockdown work over the years, and is there for us. And they've done a lot of things on like who to watch at various events and things of that nature, but they have not mocked it out for a while. So we don't have that. The latest mock draft was 33 days ago. So any kind of recent movement wouldn't really be something that you have in there. But it's a tone setter. So it's the same. It's Amon Thompson 4. Then they have Jarace Walker at 5, which again, that was 30 some odd days ago. It might be true. Sewer Thompson at 6, Cam Whitmore at 7, Anthony Black at 8, Grady Dick at 9, Taylor Hendricks at 10, with Hawkins, Smith, Keontae George, Jayson Wallace all the way down at 14. I think Jayson Wallace has jetted up in the last 30 days on that. So that's where the draft boards sit here. From a Jazz standpoint, obviously, your choices are 9 or 10. It does feel as though that matters a little bit. Like talking to people around the draft, I haven't watched all 9 players yet to know. There does feel like that 9 or 10 might matter a little bit. That being 9 just gives you a better chance to get one of the better players. Tony Jones, I know, believes, and we're going to tape a show for, I guess tomorrow, we'll have Tony Jones on the show pre-lottery talking draft on the show tomorrow for you. It's probably the best way to do it because he and I are going to tape a show tonight and talk a little bit about that and where he sees the Jazz going and all this kind of stuff. So that'll be on tomorrow's show with Tony. But the other aspect I would say to that is I think, Tony believes it's a 9-player draft. Like he thinks that that's really just a huge difference. I don't know enough to be able to step on that. All right, Lauri Markkanen got snubbed. I didn't get into it. I mean, he's better than Julius Randle. It was just silly. It wasn't surprising. But it was silly. It's too bad. It cost Lauri a bunch of money. Hurts the Jazz chances of re-signing him because you can't supermax him. I don't know if you really want to supermax Lauri, but I'd like to do anything I can to keep Lauri, so I'm up for it. But I wanted to dig in a little bit on kind of some interesting like numbers about the vote, or just kind of the vote. I went and did a bunch of stuff digging into the vote, and I actually got to be honest, I didn't find what I thought I was going to find. I'll explain that to you as we continue today on Locked On Jazz. Thank you so much to all the Locked On Jazz listeners that make this your first listen every single day, and a special thanks to all the everydayers. All right, here's how the week lines up. Tuesday, Tony Jones. Lottery party Tuesday night on YouTube at 6. Wednesday show for you will be lottery reaction. And then I'm going to try to get into breaking down players for you. I've not done as much of that as I should. It takes so much time to have watched a player and then come out with any type of definitive statement about him. I don't want to come out and then be and then change my mind on it. All right, here's what I thought was interesting on the Lauri being snubbed. The easy answer is that Julius Randle is a New Yorker. All the East Coast New Yorkers voted for him, and that's why Lauri got snubbed. I mean, if you go to the smart guys, so Kevin Pelton's third team, and really what it is that Lauri's going to get third team votes. Kevin Pelton, who numbers, analytical, actually has them both. Super interesting. Kevin Pelton is one of the only people that had both Lauri Markkanen and Julius Randle on their ballot. There were a few others that did that, but they're very, very few. One of the others that had that was Chris Mannix out of Sports Illustrated, who's an East Coast guy. He's out of Boston, but he would have fit the East Coast bias. Another one that had the Lauri Markkanen and Julius Randle match was a Detroit Free Press writer. And then there were some that just didn't have either of them. And also, Mikal Bridges began to get some votes. But what I did find that was not the case, and then Justin Tremaine of Sirius Radio, who's another New Yorker, had both of them. I thought you'd go down through this and you'd be get to someone like Stephen Bondy, New York Daily Times, and be all right, well, he's going to have Julius Randle and not Lauri Markkanen, and he had Jimmy Butler and Anthony Davis. And he didn't have either. And then I kind of scanned down. It's all right, well, who's my next East Coast guy that I'm fully searching for the East Coast bias here. That was clearly what I was looking for. And you know what I found out is what I didn't find was a whole lot of what I expected. What I actually found was that most of the New Yorkers didn't vote for either of them. And that it was a lot of the other, kind of the mid-level guys who, now, Stephen A. Smith, who is a huge Knicks fan, we all know, we have to see it, he didn't vote for Julius Randle. Third team. He voted for him second team. Okay, sorry, that was just ridiculous. But it was an interesting little kind of find for me that when you look through this to see who these guys were, I didn't find this incredible East Coast bias. What I found was Julius just got more votes. I think it's wrong. But I was trying to find out the origins of it rather than just I can make the case for you, but I'm preaching to the choir here of who deserves these things and who doesn't. And certainly, if you go grab West Coast voters, they had a tendency to vote more for Lauri Markkanen than East Coast voters, but it wasn't this total East. In fact, it was the guys who saw Julius Randle the most who I actually think might have left him off. I mean, and the voting thing's super interesting. You learn an awful lot about who people are, and you can get really critical with them about various things and that and these and those. Brian Windhorst had Donovan Mitchell third team, and he's in Cleveland, or is a Cleveland guy. He actually lives out in he might live in Lincoln, Nebraska or something like that at this point. So it was super interesting. Kevin O'Connor, who is a West Coast guy now for The Ringer, national writer, but with East Coast ties, had Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson on both on his, I think, first and second teams. But he was a Julius Randle guy, but he lives in the West Coast now. So it was just super interesting. It wasn't how, the whole, this is the least of people's concerns on this vote is, Julius Randle versus Lauri Markkanen. You didn't see a lot of people across the country getting into this big debate. This is definitely a Utah thing, but it's interesting. Dave McMenamin, who does ESPN Lakers coverage, didn't have either. Rob Mahoney, who I put on my elite smart people, writes for The Ringer in the league. I think he's probably one of the best writers. He's he writes you must read. He had Julius Randle and not Lauri Markkanen, and he's a West Coast guy. So super interesting to me that, I heard a lot, it's East Coast bias. It's not actually. It's not the East Coast bias. It was Chris Herring, Sports Illustrated, New York-based, both. It just was kind of a matter of votes over the time period. It might be exposure, like the Jazz played no national TV games, had the model that they were tanking all year, and then did lose a lot of games late in the season, and that probably hurt Lauri. But the narrative that I've heard from people over the last few weeks about the Lauri getting snubbed, it's not actually accurate. It was an overall, Locked On Grizzlies host DeMichael Cole, who's a Memphis guy, so he's West Coast. You would think Lauri Markkanen, nope. Jimmy Butler, Jaylen Brown. Right? So you go through, you should, if you were going to be able to guess this, you should have been able to go through these guys and be able to say give me a name of someone, and then I'm going to be able to guess how they voted if it's an East Coast bias. You can't do it. Frank Isola, former New York writer, now radio host. Julius Randle's second team. Seems a bit much. Mikal Bridges, Brooklyn, third team, no Lauri Markkanen. There might be your one that matched it. All right, just thought I'd get that out. Thought that was interesting. All right, let's do one of our last lotteries here. Tony Jones on the show tomorrow. One day, 11 hours, 20 minutes. By the way, also Locked on NBA today. I did it with Howard Beck, so that should be up and available for you shortly, or if it's not already. Here we go. Does this one feel more important to anyone in the sense that this is our last simulated lottery that we're doing? Unless we do one tomorrow. Here we go. This is how you will view the lottery, by the way. Okay? This is how you view the lottery. When they start, they will reveal the 14th pick first, and you want it to be New Orleans. In our case, it is New Orleans. The 13th pick is the Toronto Raptors, and you want that. And the 12th pick is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and you want that. And the 11th pick is the Chicago Bulls, but it will go to Orlando, and you want that. And now we get to 10. And by the way, our chances of being top 4 are way up at this point. Not way up, but from 20.3% to there's another, if all those teams are gone, then we have the least chance of those remaining, but there's another, I think 22%. There's about a 22% chance that one of those 4 teams up to that point, New Orleans, Toronto, Orlando, Chicago, that one of those teams will show up, maybe 23%, will show up in the top 4. So there's a 1 in 4 chance that one of those will show up. Okay? And so we're hoping against that. Then 10 comes. That's one of our most likely scenarios. We hope not to hear the Jazz. If we do, it means that Dallas has jumped up if we haven't heard somebody else. If we've heard somebody else, we could very well be at 10 by that. We would be at 10 in all likelihood by that point. Number 9 is obviously the next spot that we hear us. If we don't hear ourselves by 9, we're in the top 4. In this mock draft case, we come to 9. The next team you'd likely hear is Washington. In our mock draft, we do not hear Washington that we just did. Indiana instead slides down. Then you should hear Orlando. We will not hear Orlando here. We hear Portland, followed by Charlotte, Detroit, Houston, San Antonio. Orlando jumps to 2 to put Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller with Paolo Banchero. If they go Scoot Henderson, could we please have Jalen Suggs as our point guard? And then Washington gets the number 1 pick of the draft with Victor Wembanyama, which means they're probably moving on, maybe from Kyle Kuzma, maybe not. And so what does that mean for the Utah Jazz. There's also all sorts of ramifications that you're just hearing there with the draft. We'll do another lottery tomorrow. They're too fun. All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day. This has been Locked on Jazz, Locked on NBA with Howard Beck. I got to host today as well. So go grab that. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.